Welcome back, everybody. It is the Walkalong. Yes, by popular demand, I've decided to call this not the watch-along, but the Walkalong. What is going on in your world, everybody? Leeds United back. Thank the Lord. Thank Jesus Christ. We are back. Playing football tomorrow, Swansea, 3 p.m. And there's a big game tonight, isn't there? Sheffield United versus Coventry. I will be doing a match reaction on the second channel. If you want to subscribe to the Conor channel, we're nearly on 4,100, I believe. So, yeah, make sure you check that out if you want some general bits, this, that and the other. And yeah, everyone, make sure you do that. We've got some bits coming from me, Jim, Bob and Joe as well on there as well. So make sure you're checking out that second channel. Right, okay, Leeds Swansea. I've got a bit of a controversial opinion on what I would do tomorrow. You need to stay till the end of the video to understand what I would be doing, which, yeah, I don't think it's going to impress a lot of you lot, but it is just my opinion on football, and that's what we're here for, a bit of subjectivity. You can agree, you can disagree, but listen, football's a variety of opinion, isn't it? So, tomorrow, massive game for Leeds. I'm really happy with who we've got to face. Watch this come back and bite me on the arse. But what I will say, off the cuff, is if we don't win tomorrow, I've said this yesterday, this will make me extremely nervous. Extremely nervous going into the final furlong, because I actually would say the Swansea game, with the greatest of respect, is probably Leeds' simplest game. Coming back after a long rest period, Ampadu, Nonso back into contention, and the players have had, likes of Aronson, has had 2 weeks to recuperate, recover, get his head back to maybe where it was in and around the Oxford game at home. And hopefully we've got a Brendan Aronson of which can, put up some decent numbers again with the final hurdle coming up. We're going to get onto him in just a second, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on about Brendan Aronson. I want to get your guys' thoughts in the comment section below on that as well, so make sure you do so. But I think looking ahead and looking toward the weekend in particular, this game, as I just mentioned, is a good one for Leeds. Swansea, not really much to play for. I think the Swansea fans would probably admit that this is maybe one where they're on the beach. I don't really, see them, fighting relegation. Obviously, they're not fighting for the playoffs either. It is just one of those mess seasons for Swansea, and I understand Pompey and QPR. People will say, look, Conor, they didn't have anything to play for. Contextually, that's not true. QPR still had a bit of an outside chance of a playoff push. Not only that, look, Sky Sports cameras sell out at Loftus Road, Leeds come to town, yada, yada, yada. We know the rhetoric. I'm not making excuses, but we know the rhetoric. Pompey, still at that moment, where, Messinho admitted this, that they were still in a bit of a relegation fight. Now, all of this should not mean anything. Leeds United are in a promotion battle, but you simply can't be 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 every single game. It's just completely unrealistic. It can't happen. Even though we have those high standards, which I do, you guys do, we have to be brutally honest. It cannot be 9, 10 out of 10 performances every single week. Now, what does that focus on? Well, for me, that focuses a lot on rotation as well, because there are some players that are chomping at the bit. We've seen Deportivo linked with Ramazani this week. We've seen, Isaac Schmidt in the past couple of weeks have a really good performance on the international stage. So Leeds' rotation, when you look at it, is exceptional. It's very, very good. And the utilisation of that doesn't come down to the player. It comes down to Daniel Farke. So that's the context that needs to be applied to this as well. And I still stand by the fact that rotation-wise, depth-wise, calibre, quality-wise, Leeds United have the best at this level. And I actually think if we were a sort of bottom half Premier League side and you had that depth that you do on the bench right now, I think it would stand up with, Everton's. There's a conversation maybe about Wolves in terms of the attacking department, definitely. So that's what we're looking at right now on the bench. So I think Swansea coming back to this game, really good little period for Leeds. I think we'll win the game. Coventry and Bristol City, which Burnley and Sheffield United have got, I'd hate those. I would hate those. As a Leeds United fan right now, I just wouldn't want those sorts of games. I think Bristol City at home, we've still got to play, of course. But I think the beautiful thing about Bristol City at home is that Leeds could be running into a little bit of form right then. And you never know, guys. We could have pulled away by then. We could have pulled away. Big word there, could. So, yeah, I mean, look, let's talk about the major news anyway. Ampadu and Nonso back. Looks like they're in light training as well. Ampadu's going to be with the squad. Willian Nonso, probably a little bit more context to be applied there. But I would not be playing either of them. I wouldn't even bring them on. You know, unless we're desperate, which I don't think we will be in this game, hopefully. But I would not be bringing them on. I think you absolutely wrap them in cotton wool and then bring them on and bring them in and probably start them for the Luton. Maybe the Luton game you're going to get Ampadu starting, and then maybe the Borough game you have Gnonto starting. Daniel Farke did mention in his press conference that Willian Gnonto has been impressing him. I'll be honest, I don't understand why it's taken this long for him to be impressing him, but that's my own personal critique of Daniel Farke. But there is a bit of grey involved with this black and white. I think Farke so far has done a really good job at Leeds so far. I think there's criticisms there with the boss, 100%, of which maybe I didn't have for Marcelo Bielsa, which is sort of the comparative in terms of long-term bosses at Leeds United. Obviously Bielsa, I think it died towards the end, but throughout his period at Leeds he seemed to get things right. However, we know he was stubborn, but we let him be stubborn because of what he was doing at Leeds. Now, what we look at with Daniel Farke is he's got what Bielsa didn't have. That's a mass amount of rotation right there, and that's massive, massive kudos to the 49ers for giving him that. And I'm sure any other manager in the division with Leeds United squad, even if it was Wilder, Scott Parker, would be over the moon with that. So the 49ers have done a really good job. Obviously, Daniel Farke right now is doing a good job. Let's just get back on the Leeds United way, you know, and it's not been abysmal from Leeds United. We played against Millwall, who raised the game. We all know against Leeds United, they absolutely hate us. They raised the game against Leeds United, and let's be honest, everybody, that second half was excellent. Leeds were brilliant, and we took away the game for them. And I think there's a bit of a blueprint with Millwall and you know, exactly how Leeds should go about games, and it is that intensity and tempo from the start and getting that early goal. But for me, in this game, Ampadu, Gnonto, nowhere near it. Do not play them, because I would be very, very worried if one of them was to pick up something a little bit stronger in terms of injury. So do not risk that, in my opinion. I know he loves Ampadu, but I think there's more than enough in that side to beat Swansea at the weekend. Now, the controversial one that I would go... Now, my head's flipping a little bit. Now, I've got Aronson on my mind. I've got Ramazani on my mind. Ramazani is a much more talented footballer than Aronson will ever be. Fact. In my opinion, anyway. In my opinion, that's a fact. You play your best players. We've not played him for long enough. We saw Willian Gnonto come in for 45 minutes, and this can't be applied to every single player because, you know, it might not be. But the minutes per goal ratio that Ladji Ramazani has at Leeds United, which is one of the best in the division, it just stands out to me. It really stands out to me. And I just think of not only that, but the lack of minutes he's had. And I just think to myself, there is an opportunity this weekend against Swansea. Ladji Ramazani comes back in and makes a big difference, makes a massive difference. And then you've got Ladji Ramazani maybe match fit for obviously the Luton game, which, you know, Ladji Ramazani playing, the amount of minutes he's got this season is, for me, has just been absolutely criminal. It's not been good enough. And as I've mentioned several times, that's probably one of the markers I'd put on Daniel Farke's rap sheet for this season. I think there's a conversation about Leeds being literally far and away with someone like Ladji Ramazani in. And obviously a goalkeeper who can catch a ball every now and again. Joking. But yeah, I think, look, Ramazani being included would be absolutely massive. And I've got a bit of a different headspace. On one side, I'm thinking Brendan Aronson has had 2 weeks out. Brendan Aronson has been poor, in my opinion, for 2025. Willian Gnonto already has got the exact same amount of goal contributions as Brendan Aronson, with a third of the minutes, which is kind of what we've been screaming from the rooftops all season, really, when it comes to starting quality players in the number 10 position. Now, when you look at Brendan Aronson, with this 2-week break, can he come back in and get that confidence up and be able to effectively go into the final 7 games with a good basis, a good foundation? The problem I have with Brendan Aronson is he's just so inconsistent. Now, the credit that I'll put to Brendan Aronson is on the half turn. I think he's very good. very good on the half turn. The problem is, a good comparison is Joe Rothwell. Joe Rothwell on the half turn is excellent, but also on the half turn, his production level in the second, third phase of a football game is very good. Very, very, very good. Brendan Aronson's production in the second and third phase isn't good enough, and it hasn't been good enough. And in a team with the most touches in the attacking third, with the highest XG, with the highest possession in the final third, in the opposition's box, I should say, the amount of times Brendan Aronson has gone missing is not good enough. So I'm in a bit of a catch-22 right now. If it's based on a meritocracy, which we're always led to believe with Daniel Farke, Ramazani, for me, should be starting. But the problem is he's not had time to prove himself at all. So how can you base it on a meritocracy? But that's down to the manager, in my opinion. I think Ramazani's done all he can, but he's been criminally underutilised. So my head's in two different spots here. I would love to see Manor Solomon in that number 10. He's got all the attributes, and people will be screaming, God, why would you take him out of the left wing spot? I don't think he's been unbelievable in the left wing spot for me for about 2 or 3 games. I would be very much inclined as an interchanging front 4, I've mentioned this before, as an interchanging 3 in behind the striker, to have Ramazani and Solomon interchanging between themselves in the number 10 in the left wing spot. I think the arguments for Brendan Aronson just focus on him being part of a team that has won as many games as we have, 38 games, 80 points. I think Brendan Aronson's had a good contribution to that, but I think it's nonsense to say something like he's been part of this team, which means he has to stay in. That's absolute rubbish. You can also pile that argument on Illan Meslier then. And then Illan Meslier never effectively leaves the side, which I think is obviously something that we all would disagree with, because he's been part of this side that has got 80 points. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think you've got to look at isolated stats, because then you never rotate. Because then, obviously, you'd be top of the division and you would never rotate anyone. That would not be the case. So, yeah, for me, that argument's nonsensical, doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think right now you base it on form, you base it on recent performances, and Brendan Aronson's been nowhere near it. Now, the other part of this is Brendan Aronson is good at home. I think the last time he was good away from home was Derby away. So you're then going into a point, the last 8 games, where I'm looking at Ramazani, and if you start him in this game, if he does well, which, you look at the calibre of opposition we're against, and you look at largely Ramazani's quality, he can then build match fitness into that Luton game away. And then you've got an actual level there of which you can build on. And then you kind of go into that Luton game with the option of Manor Solomon or Willian Yonto if he's fit in that number 10. Okay, and then you've also got an option of Laji Ramazani if he's performed well against Swansea, or Manor Solomon on that left wing. I don't think Solomon's been unbelievable recently that we can't have the conversation about Solomon staying in, but him going in the number 10. I've mentioned this previously. Manor Solomon is perfect for that number 10. Absolutely perfect. And this whole stuff about wingers not been able to play in the number 10. It's on 45 minutes. Well, you saw him literally being arguably man of the match in 45 minutes last week. And the whole conversation is, no, wingers can't play in the number 10. Well, our winger played in the number 10. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter if it's 45 minutes. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 15 minutes. This is what I was saying about Sheffield Wednesday. If you get a winger who can play in the number 10 and he's affecting the game, then you can turn around and say, oh, well, he has a lot of attributes that can fit into that number 10. He was good on the half turn. He's got exceptional agility over 5-10 yards. He's got excellent balance. He's got a good shot efficiency. So it's absolute nonsense that wingers can't play in the number 10. And there's multiple examples at championship level, by the way, not only Premier League level. So you've seen Willian Yonto for 45 minutes be the best player on the pitch in the number 10. Solomon, for me, there is an argument he has more attributes that fit into the number 10. Very Pablo-esque, I've mentioned this before. So, and then you can get the interchanging thing. We've mentioned this before, you get it with wingers when they change either side in this Daniel Farke system. Against Harrogate, not the exact blueprint you want to look at, but the lovely thing about Harrogate is you got some interchange in between that 3 who hadn't played together before, but I'd love to see that again. I really would. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What would you do? let me know. Interested to see your lineup as well. What's your score prediction for this weekend? We're going to be back with a watch on tomorrow. See you in a bit.